My wife crossed the only line I ever set with her. How can I forgive her? My wife F26 and I M27 have known each other for 10 years and got married in 2018. We have very different lifestyles. She's a very devout Mormon and I am not religious. We found some way to make it work. It was a hard road, but there are some challenges still, but we love each other very much. She has never met my biological mother. My parents were divorced long before I met her, and I broke contact with my mom after I turned 18. My mom was extremely abusive towards me growing up. She physically abused me and my sister regularly and tried to frame it on my father. She was able to manipulate a doctor to give me multiple medications growing up and she'd steal the meds. Her dirt boyfriend also tried to be abusive to me too. I cut my losses and cut all contact with my mother and her family. So did my sister. My parents, dad and stepmom, didn't approve of my wife at first because of her religion, but they get along now. When my wife asked me when she'd meet my mom, I told her she never would. She's a violent and terrible woman and she has no place in my life and I didn't want her involved in ours. I also told her not to contact anyone in my mom's family. Recently, my mom showed up at my work, which she had no knowledge of. It got ugly, and police had to be called to remove her from the property. It was such an embarrassment. When I got home, I told my wife, and she just had her, oh shit, look on her face. I asked what that was about. She confessed she reached out to my mom and told her where I worked because my mom wanted to make amends. My wife's beliefs are that everyone deserves forgiveness and doesn't believe something could be unforgivable. I told her that violated the one thing I told her was out of bounds and didn't even tell me until shit hit the fan. She of course has been apologetic. I told her we'd get there, but I needed to get through it. I've been sleeping in the office at home, and we've barely spoken since. We are supposed to travel to her parents for Thanksgiving, but I'm really considering staying home with the dogs so I can sort myself out. I'm not sure how to get over this. Edit, added that she's met my stepmom. She's also fully aware of what my mom did to us. Update. I appreciate the support of those who messaged me, as well as those curious what happened. I didn't expect this to blow up. I'll give an update in chronological order, but trigger warning. Details about childhood abuse is mentioned. Get this out of the way. Mom was served with a restraining order. She can't go on my work property and I suffered no issues at work because of what happened. Leading up to Thanksgiving, my wife and I sat down to talk. I said I wasn't gonna go to her parents for the holiday and I think it would be best if we had some time apart. She was upset and scared cause she has bad anxiety when she travels far alone. So her sister agreed to travel with her. But in this conversation, I asked to see the messages between her and my mom. My mom had bothered her for months with messages on Facebook asking how I was doing, if I was alive, and saying she doesn't get to hear from her son, ECT. That part is what got my wife to reply with an update on everything. She mentioned what I did at my work and named the place. Which there's only one location in our city. I knew she had been reached out to, as me, my sister and her husband all had. But I didn't know she was constantly harassing my wife like that. Which, in the time between my mom showing up and this conversation, my mom sent several messages accusing her of setting her up, keeping her son from her, and those very pleasant messages. She went to her parents' place. I made burgers and hung out with the dogs on Thanksgiving. I went over to my dad's that Friday while everyone there was out doing Black Friday things. We hung up the Christmas lights and I told him what happened. Oddly, my dad didn't have much to say. He asked what I was gonna do. I asked him for a specific file he had and I told him I'd show her the file. Wife comes home after almost a week, and the day after, I sit her down and we have a conversation and I pull out the file. She clearly didn't intend what happened, but she asked if I was divorcing her. I said no, but she needed to have told me what happened and or blocked her. If she had insisted on messaging my mom, I should have been involved to make a more generic message. At this point I opened the file, put it in front of her, and she went completely pale. In the file were the pictures of me the night my mom gave up custody. What happened was, we got into a fight over my grades in junior high. My mom started hitting me repeatedly, to the point where her nails had started to cut my face. At this point, I was big enough to stop her. I caught her wrist and I twisted it enough to where she stopped and ran out of the house. The police were called cause my mom said I broke her wrist. I didn't. My dad picked me up, took the photos of my bruised and cut face, and my mom released custody to him. A few of these cuts left scars that are still visible on my cheek and side burn area. After explaining what she was seeing, and she looked through what was in there, I told her she needed to understand she opened the door for my mom to have done this to me again. To my mom potentially doing that to her, and if we had any kids, they'd be at risk for the same abuse. Cause my mom hasn't changed, her messages were the master manipulator going after my innocent wife. She said she didn't know it was this bad and she didn't mean that to have happened. I said we needed to go to therapy as a non-negotiable and she agreed. I caught some heat from her parents for showing her the file. Her parents had me promise them I'd protect her and not ruin her innocent view of the world, I guess is the way to word it. She had a very slow grasp of real-world things that weren't very present in the church upbringing. Although, they actually agreed she shouldn't have responded to my mom. Which was surprising. I did some solo therapy before we did our couples therapy. She was a little upset because I was distant during the holidays. Like I wasn't there. Apparently, I had some kind of repressed or undiagnosed PTSD and I began discocitating again after that happened, and that was why I didn't seem like I was present. I feel like we are making progress. The therapist said my wife had this subconscious desire to fix things and make her perfect family because of some issues her parents had and some issues on both sides of her family. So that was likely why she responded without checking with me. We have stopped trying for a baby for now. Which she's devastated about presently cause one of my stepsisters announced she's pregnant and it really kind of hurt her cause she really wants to be a mom. We are spending time together again and sleeping in the same bed. She's tried really hard to make it up to me and she's been trying to read more about abuse and understanding those things. Which is hard for her. We try to get things back to normal throughout Christmas and New Year's. Presently we are doing our therapy every 2 weeks and I see my therapist the weeks in between. Thinking back, showing her the file with those pictures may have been a step too far. Our therapist said it was probably a lot for her to take in. But I said it in our session and I said it the night of. She needed to completely understand what door she opened and what repercussions could have come from what she did and what could happen to our, theoretical, children if she opens that door again. I'm not sure if there was an alternative to showing her that file, but I think she understands what I really went through. Now, my wife will sometimes rub the scar lines on my face and just give me this strange look. She never questioned those scars before and she just looks at them like that sometimes. That's where we are at. I think things are salvageable, as the way things came out before, it seemed like she sought out my mom. But I think she just got played and just attempted to give my mom some peace of mind but unintentionally made a problem that she didn't understand. Thank you again for those who reached out and offered support before. Unnecessary to read, but for context, the example my wife gave in therapy about me not being present was this. We have a tradition in the second week of December, we go out together, get breakfast and do our Christmas shopping. Usually at Target cause she likes getting a Starbucks hot chocolate. But as we'd go through, she'd look back at me and I was often just staring off in the distance or not really giving full answers, and I admitted I didn't remember most of what we did that day. Which she was sad because that's one of the things about the holidays she most looks forward to is that day together. Edit to add. She told her parents the truth about why I didn't come to Thanksgiving, and when they asked what happened and if things are okay, she told them where we were heading and mentioned the file with the police report, pictures and court documents. Was I surprised she told them everything in the folder? Yes. But did she go behind my back? No.